It's time once again for another episode of Georgia Business Radio. Broadcasting live from the Pro Business Channel studios in Atlanta. And now here's your host, Rich-Casanova.
All right, we are locked and loaded for another episode of the Georgia Business Radio Show. Rich-Casanova here in the driver's seat. We have a power pack. These are the movers and shakers making things happen in Atlanta and beyond. And we want to welcome our first guest. Will be joining us in our second segment for the show, the good folks from Taylor English. And actually, Christina, you're a returning guest. You were on Atlanta Legal Experts Radio a while back.
Yes, I am.
Yes, you came back.
Had so much fun I had to come back.
Nice. Good answer, yeah. All right, so welcome back to the show. And also joining you alongside you is Joe Sullivan. Welcome to the Georgia Business Radio.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So give our folks a little teaser what you all might be chatting about. What's in your wheelhouse or short list?
Yeah, sure. Christina and I are here kind of to discuss kind of a growing practice area that we see specifically related to some of the business consumers that we represent and clients, which are kind of consumer website reviews, specifically those that are negative, and what our businesses can do, the clients that we represent, to kind of combat that and to pursue some sort of legal, formal legal avenues to address.
Yeah, this is going to be a hot topic for a lot of folks, obviously, Pro Business Channel, those folks in business, and y'all at your website. I mean, you handle the whole gamut of business-related issues, and that's what kind of impressed me when we had you here on Atlanta Legal Experts. But this specific topic, addressing those challenges online, that is your kind of identity, right?
Absolutely. And a lot of these websites, I mean, it's useful that when you get great content reviews, but then when you get a negative review, it can really do damage to a business.
And it's weird how that just stands out for some reason, right?
Right.
I mean, that's one of our mantras here is we're unabashedly pro-business, but a lot of media, and now it's kind of carried over to social media and to other, the World Wide Web or all things online, is you'll get one comment, and people tend to, for some reason, kind of focus on that. So you help folks, correct me if I'm wrong, kind of abate those issues and deal with them, right?
That's right.
Okay. Well, we will look forward to that conversation here in just a moment. And first up in the studio, we have the folks from Leader Capital. And actually, Ron Holbert, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Rich.
And we have to say, for true transparency, you guys are right here in our building.
Yes, we are.
And
we share, we're on the same floor.
Yeah, we've been kicking around the idea of having you in for quite some time, and finally it's arrived.
Yeah, glad to be here. Appreciate the invite.
Yeah, absolutely. And so if you'll introduce a gentleman joining us from Portland, it is right?
Yep, Portland,
John?
Oregon. John Lekes. He is our president and CEO and senior portfolio manager for Leader Capital.
Okay, and I'll continue the bio, and then we'll bring John in on the show here in just a second. So, as you mentioned, career at A.G. Edwards and Sons in 1986. 1993, entered the portfolio management program at Smith Barney. 97, started Leader Capital as the founder and president CEO, as we mentioned, registered investment advisory and broker-dealer. Mr. Lekes has over 20 years of investment experience and has managed fixed income securities on a discretionary basis for over 17 years. He is a regular guest on CNBC and is frequently quoted in financial publications such as Barron's and Bloomberg. And finally, John, you've arrived to the Pro Business Channel.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So how are things in Portland these days?
They're good. They're rainy. They're good. Everything's going along just fine.
All right. And so let's kind of jump right into it. What do y'all do to help folks on a day-to-day basis, I guess?
Well, pardon me, what are we doing? We buy fixed income securities. That's what we do on a day-to-day basis.
All right. And how and so how long has this been around, you said?
2005.
Okay. And obviously there's a lot of uncertainty in the markets. It seems like we're hearing more of that going on in 2016. What's your take or perspective on that?
Markets are going lower. The S&P should go to 1550 this year. So goes January, so goes the year. It's the worst January we've had in 83 years.
Wow.
You can look for a lower market. 1550 is our target on that, and we're about 9 months into a bear market. I think you got another 6 months to go, and usually the last little bit of it's the toughest. So I think you got more volatility. However, the exception to that, this year, we believe that you will make money in oil and gas. It'll probably be the only sector that you do actually make a profit in. So we're bullish on oil and gas, but the overall market, we think, goes lower here.
Yeah, because actually, Ron, Jason in the building here also, we were having this conversation over lunch the other day. Talk to us about the pricing of oil.
Okay, oil is simple, and what you need to do is get to oil. Oil is a pure spread play, and I'm just going to extrapolate a little bit on that. And what that means is when the difference between consumption and production moves just a little bit, there's dramatic price movements in the price of energy. If you go back to 08, 32.70 was the bottom. Second quarter of 09, which is only 6 months later, prices went back to 75. That's because that spread tightened. And so when the spread, the difference between consumption and supply goes to parity, meaning they're the same. So right now it's about 94 million barrels a day, and they're producing, it's about 95.50. So they're making a little bit more than what's being consumed globally. And so that little teeny bit has huge impacts on the price of oil. So that spread peaked in 2015. We think it gets back to parity June of this year, and the price goes to about $79 a barrel.
Wow.
And it's just a pure spread play. That's it. And I want to talk about Iran a little bit. You asked that question. Iran is a non-event. And the truth about sanctions is Iran's been pumping 2.8 to 3 million barrels a day for the last 10 years. So the sanctions, I don't know what people are talking about. It's a non-event, and on top of that, the cost of production in Iran is well over $60. So they're not going to add anything to that until prices move back up. That's our view.
And so, what does that mean to besides the business and what drives the economy? What's the ripple effect of that on the consumer?
The ripple effect on that is that we think commodity prices go up. Because very simply, you squeeze supply, so prices will move up here. So that'll be another layer of burden on the system. So we think that impacts GDP negatively. Henceforth, that's why we think equity markets go lower. I mean, that is part of the problem, but it's not helpful. And you get sort of the worst of both worlds. You get what we call the old stagflation kind of thing. You got rising prices, but you got shrinking growth.
All right, so we're talking to the folks with Leader Capital. John is joining us from Portland. We're live here in our Pro Business Channel studios in Buckhead within Atlanta. So talked about oil. Now, we don't normally get into politics here, so we kind of keep it related to the markets and to the economy and to business. But there's no doubt, right, that the election's going to have an impact of some sorts. What's on the short list of how that would affect the markets in terms of the presidential election?
Well, okay. So certainty, is always good for markets, but this election, I think the markets are going to go. I gave you my market direction. I think I don't think the elections are going to impact that, and frankly, they'll come November, December, which will be what I think closer to the beginning of another bull market. So it's hard to say because they're sort of right on the tail end there. The election's talking about, but I think they're a non-event, and I mean that's what I'd say. But I will say certainty, always is always good for markets. But they're far enough out. I don't think they have an impact between now and November.
And this juncture, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think this bear market's going to play out regardless, and I think, do I think more conservative policies are better for equity markets? 100%, and I think that some of the liberal policies and the giveaways and the overregulation of banks, I don't think is healthy for the economy. I'll just say that.
Okay, and let's kind of switch gears over to Ron here just for a moment. So Ron's joining us here in the studio in Buckhead. Ron's a wholesaler with Leader Capital, covering the Southeast, calling on wirehouses. I was going to say warehouses.
Wirehouses.
Yeah.
Independents.
Yeah, that makes more sense, yeah. Registered investment advisors, started in the security business in 98 with Edward Jones, attended University of Georgia, majored in economics. You and your wife, Kimberly, have 3 boys living in Marietta, Georgia, and you attend Johnson Ferry Baptist Church over in East Cobb.
That's right.
Right, yeah. And you enjoy spending time and cheering the Georgia Bulldogs. We try not to get political or or collegiate issues, but yeah, I think most people in Georgia would.
Yeah, go Dogs.
Yeah, right. Get that thrown in there. So, what's a day in life look like for you over there?
Well, Leader Capital, we're a fixed income mutual fund company. We've got two funds, our short-term bond fund and total return fund. And I call on both the wirehouses, reps in the wirehouses and independents, clients such as Merrill Lynch, UBS, LPL, BB&T, Scott and Stringfellow, and call on them, develop relationships with those reps, and see how we can do business together.
So you're more in kind of the partnership capacity of aligning yourself with those folks?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, when we go in, we're looking to establish a long-term relationship with the reps, work with them, see how we can add value to their business and to their clients' portfolios.
Okay. Well, in just a moment, we're going to turn our attention to Taylor English, but just round things out here for us, gentlemen, John and Ron. What does a good day look like for y'all in your business, and what's the challenges y'all typically face?
John, you want to take that?
No, you go ahead.
Okay. Good day for us is solidifying new relationships with reps and getting continued business and getting a part of a share of our reps' portfolios. And telling the Leader Capital story, giving our clients access to our senior portfolio management team, I'd say is probably one of the biggest things that sets us apart from our competitors. We're not the size of Vanguard or PIMCO, but when it comes to access to people like John, who's our senior portfolio manager, and also Ben Emmons, we have total transparency, and our reps have access to our senior portfolio management team anytime.
All right, well said, and hang tight, John. We're going to turn our attention, as we mentioned, over to Taylor English, or maybe some time for some cross-conversation or questions, and we'll finish out in a minute letting folks know how they get in touch with you. But so again, joining us in the studio, Joe and Christina from Taylor English, and so interesting conversation so far, yes or yes?
Of course.
All right, good answer. So we mentioned this idea of the challenge with these consumer websites. Let's pick up back with that. And what's on the short list as far as the yin and yang there?
Well, I think the first thing to understand is that, particularly with kind of the modern society that we live in, that people have access to the internet via their phones. Basically, people are walking around with computers in their pockets.
Wow.
So they have immediate ability to go online and state any sort of review against either you individually or your company that may not be true, and that will eventually affect your business, whether it be to discourage other consumers from using your business, to impugn you professionally. So we kind of live in a society now where people think their opinions matter. They want to be heard. Things like Facebook and Twitter, you're only a click away from having your business kind of brought into disrepute. So we've seen, obviously, increasingly consumers that kind of utilize these websites, and as a result, our business clients come to us and say, a person can go online, make a statement that's completely untrue, affect our business outlook, and we don't really know what we can do in response to that. So we've seen that kind of increasing in our practice area, and we think it's just an interesting area to discuss, specifically as related to some of the steps that businesses can take to either combat the issue or to kind of pursue formal legal avenues to address the issue.
It's interesting. This all kind of comes to the forefront. As I was listening to two conversations recently. One, the NPR was talking about this exact topic. In a sense, they were saying that you can have someone, an expert, subject matter expert, reporting, say, for the Wall Street Journal, making some observations, and in that same feed could be somebody from Omaha that doesn't have a clue, right? And they just happen to be online and have a blog. And there's no fact checking. And matter of fact, we have an event. We're a member of the Atlanta Press Club here for the Pro Business Channel, and they have this exact topic coming up about the process of fact checking. So maybe we invite you guys to that event, right?
Right. In line with that, many of these websites don't require the users who post content to identify themselves. They don't have they could use a fake name. So you're fact checking not only what the content is posted, but also you're fact checking if these people are reputable. And most consumers who go online accept what they see written online as truth. So it could be, a disgruntled employee, an a business who's in competition to you, who posts something just to disrupt your business. So you're not only just fact checking the content, but also who is it that posted this?
The source,
Right.
Because we used to say consider the source, but we don't hear that anymore, right? It's just
yeah, and there's kind of like that old joke that, of course, it's true. I saw it online.
Yeah.
You don't think people actually believe that, but there are studies out there that say 9 out of 10 people that go on these websites believe what they read, that they consider them, and that they do use them in terms of who they choose to give their business to. So it's definitely a considerable problem that businesses face. And for us, when we get a client that calls us, the initial question is, well, what can I do to try to resolve this? Right. And I think at that point, the distinction really is between whether or not what's being posted online is kind of a statement of fact or an opinion. Opinions are kind of per se protected under the law, and that's more or less a freedom of speech type of protection. So the examples that we usually give are something like if we have a hotel client, if someone posts something online that says something to the extent of, I believe that their deposit, deposit policies are ridiculous or unwieldy. That's one thing. It's another thing for them to state something like, well, they stole my deposit. Or if I'm an attorney and there's an attorney website and it says, I think that his fees were unreasonable, or I think his fees were really high. Yeah. That's one thing. It's another thing to state he made up billable time that he didn't actually work. So it's kind of towing the line between what someone thinks is an opinion that people reasonably might disagree about, as opposed to kind of statements of fact about you individually or you professionally that could really cause you damages.
Those are some treacherous waters. Just what you explained is it's some very gray area there, right? And that's but I do have a question: is when how would a business be alerted? I mean, because there's so many sites and wheels spinning out there on the internet. How do you kind of monitor that?
A lot of businesses, I'm pretty sure, have a designated person that goes online and types in their business and checks content at these various websites. Maybe a lot of restaurants, businesses would go on and check reviews to see
like
what they
on
can
Yelp and stuff.
Right.
So it's really based on the industry.
Right. And I mean, that's one way I think they check.
And it's funny that you actually mentioned Yelp, because Yelp is kind of the biggest quote unquote offender in this particular area. And they've had lawsuits and town halls where they have had to defend themselves. And what Yelp actually does is, and a lot of what these websites do, is they make you buy into their website. So you essentially buy a $20 monthly fee, and then you are actually emailed an alert that says someone made a review about you. Would you like to comment to it? And what a lot of people on the Yelp website say is, they have this filtering software that more or less filters out positive reviews. And then they have this system where if someone posts something negative about you, you're not really able to respond to it unless you actually advertise with Yelp. So there's all sorts of business considerations about it's not necessarily professionalism extortion, but it's very close.
But it sounds like it,
There's other websites just like that where if you have an issue before they decide that they'll actually remove the review, they want you to pay $5,000 to go into their arbitration program. So it's basically a way for them to get you to buy into the program, to spend money to try to take down these negative posts, which is obviously an issue that clients want to get the posts taken down, but at the same time, they don't want to feel like they're being extorted out of money to do so.
So what is kind of line of defense, if there is one, and then what's a plan of attack, if you will, or to resolve these issues?
The first step would be if you're able to post a response. If someone posts something about you and you're able to respond to it and address the consumer's issue, but you got to be careful with that because you don't want to admit liability or you didn't do anything wrong, but it's addressing the consumer without admitting fact or admitting that their opinion is valid. And then a lot of these websites don't allow you to actually respond. So then you get further down the road. Well, can we identify who the consumer is, and can we find that consumer and reach out to them directly?
Right.
It's part of the issue is obviously the same anonymity that makes a consumer comfortable in posting these responses is the same anonymity that will protect them from a potential lawsuit. So in terms of legal redress, if you can somehow find the identity of the person, many times we found sending a cease and desist letter that just essentially states, you've made a negative review online that we believe is untrue. We know for a fact is untrue. It's causing us damages. Please retract or delete it. If that's not possible, the next step to do is to actually file what's referred to as a John Doe lawsuit, which is you don't know the name of the plaintiff, but you want to proceed against them. And after that lawsuit's filed, you can actually serve a subpoena on the website itself.
Really?
Ask them to provide you the IP address and the identity of the person that made the post. And then after that point, once they're identified, you can actually proceed against the individual in a lawsuit. So there are legal avenues. The problem is, obviously, it's a cost-benefit analysis. Whether or not you believe this one review really will affect your business, whether or not the potential attorney's fees involved will provide you a benefit that's to your advantage in actually incurring those legal costs. But there are ways to do it. It's a very time-consuming process. And at the end of the day, you're not really aware of what the individual that posted that website is capable of defending the lawsuit or paying any sort of money damages.
These are some, I mean, I knew the topic when we corresponded with this, but now that I'm hearing this, I mean, we could do a whole hour on this, just on this one topic. It's just, my mind is spinning 100 miles an hour thinking, on one case, there's scenarios where, like you said, you reach out to that person and see if you can not apologize, but say maybe, I'm sorry you feel this way, right? That would be a pretty safe answer, right? Because you're not admitting their opinion, and then say, how can we make it right? Like right across the street, you mentioned like JW Marriott. If somebody has a bad guest experience, there's some people would say that's an opportunity to make a lifelong fan.
Right.
But if you then the tricky thing is if you engage with them, then all of a sudden they get excited, and that may turn into a cause, or more. It may stir up more action or attention.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think the one thing we tell our clients is people want to feel like they've been acknowledged.
Yeah.
So these type of online reviews where you are allowed to make a response, it is good to make a response that's very generic. We're sorry that you feel this way. We take our clients, into consideration in terms of your problems, and we're working every day to try to resolve them. But obviously, you don't want to admit, we screwed up here, or you're correct, or anything of that nature. So it is a fine line between making sure the consumers are aware that you're taking their concerns seriously, but at the same time not pushing them over the edge in terms of, they're essentially admitting what they did was wrong. Right. Now I'm going to go out and get my own attorney to potentially file a lawsuit here.
So do you do people have you on retainer, so to speak, like to manage this and address these ongoing issues with some of the larger clients, or is it case by case or as the need arises? Or
this is an area of practice where there are clients for other reasons. This is not the only reason they're engaging you. They probably have a bigger problem if that's the case. Yeah. But then they come to us, and we're able to help them with these type of issues. And a lot of it from, Joe's got more of the litigation background. And from my end, a lot of it is a negotiation or word crafting to, not get to the point of litigation, and helping them on that end. And this, it's not just, for me, it's not just the websites and consumer responses, but also, consumers file complaints with attorney general's offices. And when you get a volume, then it becomes an issue with the AGs, and you don't want that. So it's often building a relationship with, the AGs, or in this case, maybe the website companies, and resolving the complaints on the front end. The issue with the websites is you can't often get to that point.
Yeah, I think definitely one of the issues is whenever someone sees something negative about either themselves or their business posted online, their first reaction always is, I want to fight this.
Yeah, right, yeah. You get defensive mode, right?
Exactly, and that's what we're here for. We understand that, but at the same time, we counsel our clients that there is kind of this cost-benefit analysis to engage in, and if it's something where it's legitimately affecting your business or if legitimately affecting your reputation in the business community, that definitely is something that you want to explore. But if it's one review out of 1,000 that basically says, for instance, like the JW Marriott that you mentioned, they forgot to make my bed one day. That's probably not going to affect your business to the extent where you need to file a lawsuit. Right. But that's what we enjoy, is kind of counseling clients through the process and saying, this is something that you should explore. Maybe this is something you should just post a response online and take it that way. So it's kind of a case-by-case basis. Yeah,
because it used to be, and I think it still applies today, that your interaction with businesses is with your wallet. So if you're not happy with their service, why just go out of your way and cause all this chaos? Just, do business elsewhere. But people are funny these days, right?
We live in a litigious society, for better or for worse.
Which is good for y'all's business, and maybe not so for others. But we just have a couple minutes left. We're going to turn to each of y'all folks and let you know, or let our folks know, our listeners, best way to reach out to you and get in touch, and maybe what's on the horizon, or some But we do want to mention you're listening to Georgia Business Radio here at the Pro Business Channel Studios, brought to you in part by Audible.com. Just go to audible/ProBusiness for your promotion code, and also by FreshBooks, freshbooks.com, a great online accounting service that we use. You just go to freshbooks.com and add the promo code ProBusiness. So, so Ron and John, what's next in your business, but also most importantly, how would folks get in contact with you?
Our website is leadercapital.com, and you can.
That's probably the easiest. Yeah,
that's the easiest
2 words.
Leadercapital.com.
And John, are you still with us? He may have jumped off the phone, but so what's next? Expansion or other markets, or anything new around the corner, or staying in your lane?
Just pretty much staying in our lane. We had one new addition back in December of 2015. We hired another senior portfolio manager, Ben Emmons, came over from PIMCO. Mm-hmm. He ran their total return fund and their global bond fund for the last 8 years, and he's a great addition to our team, really brings some in-depth knowledge. He's got over 20 years experience in the industry. He's written a couple of books. So we're really happy to have Ben on the team, and adds a little depth to the bench. Absolutely.
So a shout out to Ben. And Christina and Joe, what else is going on there at the studio? I mean, at the at the studio, at the firm.
Well, we're continuing to drive value to our clients. I think we're up to about 140 attorneys now.
Wow.
So it's a fast-growing law firm. We have kind of an interesting model that is a little bit different from the traditional law firm model. We are a big firm, but we do provide kind of individualized attention to our clients. So obviously we direct people to the website for either Christina or mine's bio. That's taylorenglish.com.
Yeah, because I think you guys have been in a couple of times on the Atlanta Legal Experts show, some folks from the firm there, right? But when you were on most recently, I was kind of about fell out of my chair when I saw your website. And at that time, there was 120 attorneys, or give or take.
Yeah.
But now it's closer to 140.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I've been telling people that story a few times. I'm like, I don't think there's a whole lot of firms out there with 100-plus attorneys, right?
No, I don't think in the Atlanta.
Well, definitely not in Atlanta, but
not based.
But you think of a firm. I mean, there's the mega firms, right?
Right.
But
the Atlanta offices, yeah. Those.
But even in all 50 states, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not holding any hard numbers here, but just from a civilian standpoint, you think a attorney firm, 20, 30 attorneys or boutique. I mean, we've had some big brand names in here, but they're not, 100 plus.
Yeah, I think the really amazing part about that is the firm actually just started in 2005.
Yeah,
so I think it's a testament to, not to pat ourselves on the back, but it's a testament to what we do, and I think it's a testament that we're attracting not only great attorneys to come work with us, but obviously the clients that give us our business, I think, are really impressed with what we can do. So I think that's a testament both to our, kind of what we do internally and what we do externally.
Well, it's been a pleasure having everyone here in the studio on the Pro Business Channel studios here in Buckhead for Georgia Business Radio. We are officially out of time, ladies and gentlemen, so we're going to see you all next time. How about that?
Thanks.
Absolutely.
Thank you again for joining Rich Casanova and our guests on the Pro Business Channel. Use the social media links here to share today's show and stay tuned for the next episode of Georgia Business Radio.